Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, it's Jesse with the Common Nerd, bringing you pop culture and all things through a common sense lens. And if you clicked on this video, you're probably much like me. You're probably an Assassin's Creed fan, especially from the early days with those original games out there. They were absolutely so much fun, running around, climbing all of those buildings. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I was in high school talking about those games, I was literally sitting down at my kitchen table trying to design and figure out a way to make a hidden blade. Now you can just go out there and buy them, and it's no big deal. But back in the day, it was not those kind of things. I was obsessed with those games. They were absolute a blast. They were so much fun. I think the last one I ended up playing was Brotherhood. Wasn't a really big fan of the team mechanics, so I didn't really ever finish the game. But man, the Black Flag was so much fun. The one in the Americas. I mean, all of those early games were just absolutely so much fun. Well, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, the Assassin's Creed Netflix series has been an absolute development hell for years, ladies and gentlemen, and we finally have the official word that it has now been greenlight. It is all ready and set to go filming. We have our showrunners and the official announcement from Netflix with all of the juicy details, boys and girls. And obviously with Netflix, it's always one of those things you kind of worry a little bit as to whether or not it's going to be a good adaptation. You have examples of situations where they've done a really good job, like Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and where that show was absolutely incredible. I loved it from beginning to end. I've gone back and watched it several times over the years. And then you have other things like Cowboy Bebop and the absolute abysmal garbage adaptation that was. And then on the other hand, once again, you have things like One Piece, which that first season was an absolute blast. The majority of the fans absolutely loved it. It was an overwhelming success. So literally, it's one of them situations where Netflix is kind of one of those 50-50 situations. It's why it's so important to know the people behind it, know the creatives involved with the situation, and what their pedigree actually comes from. And that's what we're going to go over here today, boys and girls, so that way we can decide whether or not we are cautiously optimistic or absolutely horrified at the very idea of an Assassin's Creed video game adaptation series coming to Netflix. Because as you can see over here from the headline at thewrap.com, Assassin's Creed Netflix series is a go. Roberto Patino and David Wiener will serve as showrunners for the video game adaptation. We've also got another article over here with Deadline with a little extra information at the end of the article that I like that the Wrap article doesn't fully have, but I like the way the Wrap article words their stories and gives us some of the information and a little bit of extra background on one of the showrunners that does at least get me cautiously optimistic for him, at least as far as the success and potential good at time the fans might have with this adaptation. So we're going to check out this article. We're going to get all the juicy details, let you know exactly what's going on, where these guys come from, and what they've done in the past. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing. We just crossed 2K. We're sailing our way towards 2,100. I think we're like 2053, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Also, leave us a comment in the section down below. Let me know what you think about this. Considering the pedigree of these showrunners, do you think this will be a good choice? Do you think this will be a bad choice? Are you cautiously optimistic about this one? Are you just going to wait and see on this one? Or is this a big, fat no-go from you just because of the fact that it comes from Netflix? Let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below. If you'd like to support the channel, please check the links in the description as well. All right, from Adam Chitwood over there at thewrap.com. And God, what a horrible picture to use. I mean, come on. This game failed miserably. I mean, at least Deadline was smart enough to use a picture from an Assassin's Creed game that actually sold well and everybody liked, unlike this one. After years of development, Netflix has ordered Assassin's Creed 2 series as live-action adaptation from the long-running Ubisoft video game. Roberto Patino, DMZ, Westworld, and Sons of Anarchy, okay? Now, that's one of the reasons why I picked this article, because they don't include Sons of Anarchy over in the Deadline article. Now, I've never seen DMZ. I've heard really excellent things about the first season of Westworld, and apparently it goes all downhill from there. But Sons of Anarchy, that was a series I loved from beginning to end. It had one of the most epic endings of all time of any series, probably one of the most perfect endings of any series possible. Of course, do I always want a happy ending? Do I want everybody to ride off into the sunset? Of course. But at the end of the day, it made perfect sense for the ending of that series. So that, for me personally, your humble common nerd out there, that at least gets me cautiously optimistic. If you've seen DMZ, if it's any good, let me know in the comment section down below, because that would add at least one more feather to his cap that might mean this actually ends up turning out to be good. Now on to the next name. And David Wiener, Halo, will serve as creators, showrunners, and executive producers. Now, Halo. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, any of you out there currently watching my videos that were here before the band knows how many times common nerds screamed and ranted about the abysmal adaptation of the Halo franchise with that Paramount CBS abysmal garbage of Master Cheeks. I have screamed, I have ranted so many times that my voice is probably now permanently damaged, and I'll probably end up sounding like Alex Jones before the end of my entire career here on on content covering all of this kind of stuff. So that part has me worried. Now, I don't know how much influence David Wiener had on adapting Halo from a video game into the absolute abomination we got on Paramount, but just because of the fact that he was involved in that series makes me extremely worried. Hopefully, it was just one of them situations where he was working for executives and the producers and other people were telling him to do this stuff the way they did it, and that's why we got the heart garbage we want. I will, at least for now, forego judgment on David here before we actually see the series, because at least, hopefully, Roberto will be able to balance him out and keep his head in the right story. Even if we maybe don't necessarily get the best adaptation of Assassin's Creed, it sounds like with Westworld and Sons of Anarchy pedigree, we'll at least get a good story. But they do have some comments on how their views of the adaptation will go. And of course, here for the log line for the series. Assassin's Creed is a high-octane thriller centered on a secret war between two shadowy factions, the Assassins and the Templars, which is one of the things that got me so excited about the game as well, because I love the Templar lore and all of that kind of stuff. One set on determining mankind's future through control, the Templars, and manipulation, while the other fights to preserve free will, i.e. the Assassins. In case you didn't know, in case you've never played the games, in case you're just watching this video because, hey, you know what, maybe you're curious to see if this might be something good to introduce you to the series. The series follows its characters across pivotal historical events as they battle to shape humanity's destiny. And honestly, it's one of them situations, if you take each game and dedicate an entire season to that, right, obviously avoid the last few games, but if you take those first few really good games and adapt the whole season to those game and flesh out the entire story with those characters, that would be wonderful. That would be great. Now, we don't know if they're doing a direct one-to-one adaptation or if they're just making a story in the Assassin's Creed world. We haven't found that out for sure yet, but I'm sure there will be more details to come as this progresses and as more work and more information comes out. You know how Netflix loves to market stuff, so they'll let you know if they are excited about something. I mean, look at the One Piece marketing we've seen. It's been absolutely insane. And so this is from a joint statement from the new showrunners, Wiener and Patino. We've been fans of Assassin's Creed since its release in 2007. Same here. Let's hope you stick by that. Every day we work on the show, we come away excited and humbled by the possibilities that Assassin's Creed opens to us. Humble is always a good sign. Arrogant, wanting to put your own spin on it, always bad signs. So let's hope they're not just blowing smoke. Beneath the scope, the spectacle, the parkour, and the thrills is a baseline for the most essential kind of human story, about people searching for purpose, struggling with questions of identity and destiny and faith. Now, the struggling with questions of identity, obviously we know that could be a red flag. That is a potential, right? We know how some of this stuff gets used for allegories these days and all kinds of other nonsense. But as a fan of the Assassin's Creed game, as a guy who's put more hours than I can even count into those games, it can be a question of identity depending on the games. There is one of the games where specifically your father, your biological father, is a Templar and you are an assassin, right? So that's going to obviously cause a conflict of interest, right? If you're somebody who's just being firstly introduced. We had some of the other characters that were essentially kind of like nobles in their own little area. One of them, because of tragedy that happens in his life, gets pulled into the Assassin's Creed world. So what are you more loyal to? The family and the nobility, or are you more loyal to the assassins? Are you more loyal to the assassins, right? What is the question? So once again, it could potentially be a red flag, but I'm not going to go running to the hills with that, saying that this is going to be some garbage hot dumpster fire just because they put that kind of statement in there. And a destiny and faith all make complete and total sense, especially if you're going to go and do back just like the games did and show like Miles in, I think it was Miles in the original games out there coming back into the real world, right? Which obviously is going to give you questions of identity. He's reliving the past memories of all of his ancestors out there, right? He's learning their skills as he recovers their memories. So that would give you questions of identity processes. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the allegory that we could be worried about. It could just mean exactly what it traditionally has always meant in good storytelling. And considering these guys come from places like Westworld and Sons of Anarchy, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt on this one and not get my pitchfork and torch out just yet. But if you've been around here for any long time, if that turns out to be the opposite, you know pitchforks and torches will come out, and you will understand why I used to have the nickname of Angry Nerd. It is about power and violence and sex and greed and vengeance. Now, I, for one, and I discussed it a little bit with my chat before we decided to cut this video, I don't remember a lot of sexy time in the original Assassin's Creed games out there. Apparently, there might have been something in Valhalla, but I never played that game. I kind of, like I said, I dropped off after Brotherhood. But it's one of them situations where, okay, I get it. There are some relationships. I believe Ezio has a love interest during his game out there, right? Things end up happening with all of that. But at the end of the day, it is truly about power, violence, greed, and vengeance for sure. I mean, how many of the historical characters did you take out in the Assassin's Creed games because they were greedy, because they were trying to take things over, because they were trying to control other people? So that part is very accurate. So far, so good, I would say. As always, it'll only be a matter of time. And as we pay attention to what these people are saying, just like we have with all of the rest of these projects in the past, we will know exactly what we are getting. They will tell you the truth, no matter how much they try to hide things out there at the end of the day. They will slip up. They will let it happen. All you got to do is look at the marketing for Fantastic Four. It's very obvious. It is a Sue-centric story, despite them saying it's all the family, all about family, family, family. Trust me, they will let you know. But more than anything, this is a show about the value of human connection across cultures, across time. And it's about what we stand to lose as a species when those connections break. We've got an amazing team behind us with folks at Ubisoft and our champions at Netflix. And we're committed to creating something undeniable for fans all over the planet. Of course, multiculturalism, we've seen that as being a buzzword for things in the past. But at the exact same time, that also is in line with the Assassin's Creed games. They have gone across many different times and many different cultures and many different places. You know, we went ancient Italy, we went like Venice and all of that kind of stuff, all the way to the Americas, all the way down to like the Caribbean with Black Flag and all that kind of stuff. So that is still all accurate. Could it be a red flag? Of course, potentially. But at the end of the day, we're not at that point yet. The show follows a live-action feature film adaptation of the franchise that released in 2016 starring Michael Fassbender. Obviously, that movie failed miserably. When we first announced our partnership with Ubisoft in 2020, we set out with the ambitious goal to bring the rich, expansive world of Assassin's Creed to life in bold new ways, said Peter Friendler, Netflix's vice president. Now, after years of dedicated collaboration, it's inspiring just to see how far that vision has come. Guided by the deft hands of Roberto Patino and David Wiener, the team has carefully crafted an epic adventure that both honors the legacy of Assassin's Creed franchise and invites longtime fans and newcomers alike to experience the thrill of the Brotherhood as never before. All sounds good, but at the end of the day, it is all marketing, right? They're going to try to put most of the time, right, unless you're like Disney, Marvel, circa like early 2020 to like 2022, they will generally try to put their best foot forward, right? They are trying to tell you these kind of things. The interviews with the actors, the actresses, the producers, the executives, all of that stuff will tell us what we need to know going on later down the road. So we've also included Jurel Gomot, Market Briefet, yada, yada, yada for the Ubisoft team invasion. So they say we're so excited to work alongside Roberto, David, and our Netflix partners, yada, yada, yada. We look forward to delivering an experience that speaks to the heart of what fans love about Assassin's Creed. Well, let's certainly hope that's true. At least they're mentioning fans and not going, we're just going to reinterpret it. We're going to reimagine it in a modern light, which is something we heard a million times before, while introducing its unforgettable worlds and timeless themes to new audiences worldwide. Well, let's hope so. Now over to the Deadline article, because there was a few extras, and like I said, much, much better choice of picture for their article than the one provided over there. So since the Assassin's Creed franchise launched in 2007, Ubisoft has sold over 230 million games worldwide. I'm responsible for, I think, at least 5 or 6 of those, becoming one of the best-selling series in the video game history. It was adapted as a feature in the 2016 one, which obviously failed miserably. The new series joins Netflix other video game adaptations, including Castlevania, not so good, Cyberpunk Edgerunners, obviously we talked about that earlier, absolutely incredible, love that one, and the upcoming Splinter Cell Deathwatch Arcane, based on Riot Games. First season was good, second season, because an Emmy Award-winning animated series. So it's one of them situations where, like, this is a lot of the kind of stuff out there that you want to hear, right? They're talking about the fans. They're talking about loving the source material. They're talking about being fans of the source material from the very beginning, right? You're not hearing a lot of the reimagining. You're not talking about doing it in our own image for a modern audience. You're not hearing any of that kind of stuff. And I will argue, in a lot of cases, I do think Netflix has learned its lesson. as far as not adapting things properly, right? Not adapting things as a one-for-one for the way the original source material said it, right? And not hiring the right people. Obviously, we saw the abominations that was Cowboy Bebop. There's a million other examples of that on Netflix. But we've also seen a lot of good adaptations lately, right? Like I said, Cyberpunk Edge Runners was great. The One Piece, obviously, was another one that we really love as well. One of the other things, too, is I know there was a lot of issues with Avatar: The Last Airbender. I know some of the characters weren't that great. I know people said some of the stuff, but one of the things that they at least did try to stick to was they did try to stick to the source material as much as possible, which is one of the reasons why I think the original creators of the series left, right? Because Netflix is like, we want to stick to the source material. We want to make it like the original series. We just want to make a live action adaptation of what you've already seen, right? But we know those creatives behind the original Avatar: The Last Airbender series, they've gone completely off the total deep end, right? They're all about the agenda. They've been possessed by the spirit of the age, all that kind of stuff. So that they were probably going to try to reimagine it in their new modern image. And Netflix is like, no, we've tried that, boyo. We're not doing that again. So for better or worse, at least they were, even for the fact that I know a lot of fans weren't necessarily happy with the series, at least they were trying to do more closely a one-to-one adaptation than adaptations like we'd seen with Cowboy Bebop. So they're saying all of the right things. As of right now, I will at least reserve cautious optimism. Cautious optimism as of right now. I'm a big Assassin's Creed fan. I hate what Ubisoft has done to the franchise. I hate how much they've driven it into the toilet because of all of their nonsense and because of all of their garbage. But at the end of the day, I want good adaptations. I want fans to be happy. I want fans to get the things they've been asking for a very long time. Good quality stories that are faithful to the source material, because that's what we deserve. We have invested, as fans globally, we have invested billions of dollars into these franchises. We have made these franchises the successes they have been. We are the ones that have made games like Assassin's Creed household names. We are the reasons why these franchises have survived for decades in some cases. That's why we, as fans, deserve to be respected, because to some degree, we own these franchises as much as the rights holders to the IPs. Why? Because at the end of the day, we decide whether an adaptation, whether a new game entry to the franchise succeeds or fails. I had my issues with Brotherhood because I didn't like the team mechanics, so I didn't finish the game. A lot of people, that was one of their last Assassin's Creed games because of the change in the mechanics, and the people didn't like it, right? But then you saw what happened with Assassin's Creed Shadows. The complete and total disrespect for Japanese culture, for Japanese heritage, right? Pushing an agenda based on a false historical character. All that possessed by the spirit of the age, agenda-driven nonsense, right? And they have now driven that franchise into the ground to the point where Ubisoft is now bankrupt, right? They are now getting bought out by Tencent in a new partnership, right? Where Tencent will be the controlling decision maker behind the entire company and the future of the Assassin's Creed franchises, which once again gives me a little bit of hope that this adaptation might actually be good, because all of the insane people over there at Ubisoft that were making all these crazy decisions and pushing the company in this direction that has cost that company, well, their entire company are gone now. A lot of them have been fired. A lot of this stuff has been gone, and they won't be making decisions going forward when it regards to any of these IPs. So at the end of the day, we've got some good pedigree. We've got some good signs for the Assassin's Creed Shadows, or the Assassin's Creed Shadows. We had no good signs for Assassin's Creed Shadows. We have at least a few good signs for the Netflix adaptation of Assassin's Creed, which I do like the idea of they're doing a television series versus an actual movie. I'm sure we're not going to get the weekly model like I would like. It'll probably end up being dropped binge, or at least in like 2 or 3 parts, like we've seen so many other things happen out there in the past few years. But at the end of the day, we do have some good signs, right? We've got one of the showrunners who's got Sons of Anarchy and Westworld under his belt. Those are good signs. The other showrunner, only credit to his name is Halo. Not necessarily a good sign, but at the end of the day, they are saying all the right things. They are saying they've been fans of the games since the early days, and for one, boys and girls, hope they're not lying to us. I hope they're not blowing smoke up our butts, because I, for one, would love to see a proper adaptation of the Assassin's Creed franchise, and I do think as long as Netflix picks the right people and funds them properly and lets them do their thing without too much oversight, we might actually get a good adaptation of that, just like we have seen with some of these others in the past. But at the end of the day, fans will decide. So Assassin's Creed Shadows from Assassin's Creed from Netflix, Freudian slips. I can't get that game out of my head for all we had to talk about that game for so long. Please, for the love of heaven, ladies and gentlemen, The fans will decide. So we are going to keep an eye on this. We are going to see what happens, and we will let you know if any of these minor red flags turn into a giant glaring problem, and whether or not the Assassin's Creed game or the Assassin's Creed game adaptation for Netflix into a television series will actually end up being good or bad. At the end of the day, we will find out. They will get exactly what they deserve, and fans will decide. Because at the end of the day, if you make us happy, we'll make you rich. And if not, well, Netflix, do you really want another Cowboy Bebop situation on your hands?